Hello, and welcome to Youth Focus, Oakland's Future. I'm your host, Malachi Seegers, a student with the Media Enterprise Alliance program here at KDOL. On Youth Focus, we go face to face with questions to our city leaders. Today, our special guest is Tony Smith, Superintendent of the Oakland Unified School District. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
For our first question, we turn to Jocelyn.
Hello, my name is Jocelyn Olivares, and I'm a junior at Life Academy. Superintendent Smith, what led to your decision to leave the Oakland Unified School District so suddenly?
Unfortunately, my father-in-law is not doing very well. He went in the hospital, and my wife was going back and forth. And actually, on April 2nd, we were sitting together and talking about where we were going to basically be and what was necessary and what the family support needed to look like. And it just got clear that we were going to need to be there. And so made that decision and then communicated with the board president and then made the announcement on April 5th.
Was it a difficult decision to make?
Very hard. I feel like I've lived in Oakland for about 16 years now. This is home. My daughters are in school here, and just basically most of my community. I went to Berkeley, and except for a very short time, I'm in California. And the work we've been doing here is, I feel like we have really invested deeply for the last 4 years about creating a sense of community, connectivity, really trying to bring everybody together. And we've done some hard work. I feel like we're just kind of turning the corner in some of that. And yet, at the same time, it feels really very simple. It's like the core of, I just believe in taking care of my family, and this is what my wife really needs, and it's the right choice for my in-laws, and so we're going to do that. And so in that regard, it feels really simple, and in the kind of the community and the connectivity, it feels really hard.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Macy.
Hello, my name is Macy Zhang. I'm a senior at Oakland High School. Are the students better off academically than they were 5 years ago?
I think the answer is yes, across the board. We've seen significant improvement in the high schools and in the elementary schools. I think we've still got a lot of work to do, but in terms of the test scores, you've seen improvement. But more than that, I think there's more inclusion, and we've seen folks more engaged in the schools, and families and community engaged. I think a lot of the planning and the hard work to get community gathered has been productive. I think we've seen an increase in high school graduation rates and a decrease in dropout or push-out rates. So more kids are staying and graduating. I think the other part for me is that we have over 270 high school students who have stayed for an additional year, like young people who otherwise were not on track to graduate, and we've created the conditions where folks who've been in some distress feel like they can stay and are getting support. And we had a whole bunch of kids who were getting pushed out, hundreds and hundreds of kids after ninth grade. And this year, under 50 children didn't go from 9th to 10th grade. And so we've seen a significant shift in, I think, young people feeling like they're connected and supported. I mean, still clearly have a long way to go, but academics are better, and I think a lot of that has to do with a focus on literacy and some of the other work, but really kind of the clinics and everything else, I think, is added to increased performance.
Our next question comes from Ray.
Nice to meet you. I'm Ray Lim. I'm a senior at Skyline High School. Superintendent Smith, what changes did you make to help students improve their basic skills of reading, writing, and math?
And one of the primary things we did was introduce what's called a scholastic reading inventory and began to be able to assess the reading level all the way through from 2nd grade all the way through 11th grade. And the reason that's important is I think we were targeting a lot of interventions and support for young people that weren't really aligned to where their needs were, and basing it on California standardized testing, which is not basically a very good measure of student literacy. And so that's one thing that we did for the whole system. I think another thing is really staying focused on building stronger content in the high school and saying that the literacy support for young people who are not reading at grade level had to be tied not just to building reading, but also to strengthening the content. We've also, increased the number of AP classes across the whole system. So it's not just about trying to kind of accelerate students who were not at grade level, but it's also about continuing to push the top. So push the top and the whole time support kids who are further behind. So strengthening the science content, and we've been really fortunate. We've got amazing teachers who are part of helping craft the new science standards. So we've been working on content as much as we're working on supporting students who are not at grade level. And I think that's paid off both for student engagement, but also seen some higher test scores. And in particular, I think that the holding on to more ninth graders had a lot to do with the ninth grade literacy support, that some students who were not able to access the content before actually started to get connected and excited. Now, like I said, we have a long way to go. But those are some things we're starting to see, and I think we wouldn't be seeing an increase in graduation rate and a decrease in the dropout or the push-out rate if some of those things weren't working. And we've seen an increase in attendance at the elementary schools. So I think that has a lot to do with it. If kids are coming and we're kind of working on the chronic absence, so chronic absence is if a student misses 10% or more, regardless if it's excused or not. If the little ones, the kindergartners, first and second graders aren't coming to school, particularly early in the morning, they're missing a lot of literacy support. So we really paid a lot of attention to that, and I think between the content and paying attention to getting more students there and supporting parents, we're starting to see some real positive moves.
Thanks. And here's Kaila.
Hello, I'm Kaila Blake. I go to Oakland High School and I'll be a senior next year. Superintendent, do you think is the lack of money the roadblock to student achievement?
It's a really good question, Kaila. It's the question that people ask all the time, like if we had enough money, would every kid be successful? I think more money, particularly in California, where we're roughly 49th in the country in terms of per pupil allocation, money really matters. And quality teaching, support, having content that really is engaging, having enough activities and support for students to feel like they belong and are connected, and having a positive school culture. A lot of those things that don't necessarily take money matter, really have serious impact on student learning. And I think in California, money is a major roadblock. We need more money, and right now, Governor Brown has taken an incredible stand and is saying that, and what he's putting forward is called the local control funding formula. And he really is saying that treating all kids in California the same is unfair, that children in higher need communities that are English learners or living in poverty need additional support. And I think it's one of the most aggressive and progressive stands taken by any elected leader in a long, long time that would have a positive impact on that. But I think at the school level, quality teaching, having a school culture where students feel connected and they have content that they're really engaged with, and teachers that help them do that. And I think that's the work that we can do almost regardless of the money, but that's the work we have to do. I also think the community engagement, having our clinics is really important, and the community engagement to keep kids healthy and in school. Money is part of that, but it's also about all the community resources and making sure that they're all aligned. So money's a big part of it, but there's a lot more that we can do even if the money doesn't get, it doesn't go up in terms of how much we're getting.
Jocelyn has another question for you.
What do you believe is your greatest accomplishment in Oakland Public Schools?
I think there are a couple of things. First and foremost, a big idea that every single child deserves a quality school regardless of neighborhood, and that we have to pull together to do that, that we would have a district that would be about full service community schools, not just having a few good schools here and there, but to have high quality schools across the board, and that be everybody's responsibility, and that we would work with all kinds of public systems, private, philanthropy, everybody. So I think the big idea that that high quality schools that take care of kids is a whole city's responsibility. I think people kind of felt that but weren't saying that. So I think I helped make some space for people to do that. I think we have been really as focused on creating high quality clinics in the middle and high schools as any district in the country, and have made more progress on that. And quite frankly, things like this, our youth leadership in Oakland and the All City Council, things that I certainly can't take credit for, but I have been relentlessly positive and supporting and saying, you know, we need young people involved, we need youth voice, supporting the A to G policy that young people brought, making sure that every young person would have access to quality content, the restorative justice work. I think this district has said we want to include and connect and really honor human relationship and not just be about breaking of rules, but about building of community. So some of those things I think I just made some room for. That's on the program side. And then really a very brass tacks one, we've eliminated a structural deficit. When I started, there was a $40 million structural deficit, which means the ongoing expenses were $40 million greater than the ongoing revenue. And that made it really hard to run a very effective system. And I believe if you want to care for every child, you have to have a high quality system, that the common good demands uncommonly good public systems, and there hadn't been a lot of investment in that. So I think I brought a kind of detailed focus on the high quality organization for the purpose of caring for children, and put those things together. Sometimes that's an either or, and really focused on academic and fiscal solvency and brought those things together in ways that they hadn't been before.
Macy, you have the next question.
Superintendents, what are your unfinished projects?
So many, Macy. This is the hard part about the leaving and the transition. I think there are really remarkable examples in the district of some super high quality community schools, and some that are just building, and some places where we've got, for example, site-based governance is a policy the board just approved last year. Quality school development is another policy the board just approved. To really say that we would build an organization that would support and use all the resources in Oakland for the benefit of all children, that's still about the organization getting better and having every school connect. But that needs leadership and needs somebody who can kind of bridge conversations and protect work when it needs to be protected, but also make hard decisions. So I think some of the big scale policy work that we've just started, I feel like it took us, we have the plan, we've been doing great work, individual programs are moving, but some of the big policy stuff, and then the Common Core, which is the change in content, which essentially one of the biggest transformation in, real game changer in public education is the content. And the Common Core is coming, and the whole new testing structure for that will be in the spring of 2015. So it feels unfinished in the sense that we've just gotten a lot of stuff in place to work on it. And I believe deeply in our kids and our teachers. And so I'll be sad to not be part of implementing all of that.
Thanks. And here's Ray.
What needs to be done so more parents in Oakland will want to enroll their children in public schools?
It's an ongoing work, Ray. The work of having shared responsibility and believing that all of our schools are all of ours in Oakland, this idea of a linked fate. I think there are too many folks in Oakland that think, well, that's happening over there, that's not my responsibility, violence in that neighborhood, I have some affluence or some resource, so I'm going to take care of my family or my friends. Like the separateness and the lack of being willing to take full responsibility for a healthy city. I think there needs to be a stronger political stand that unless we stand together, Oakland is going to be torn apart. And this is not just a question about getting more families to come back to Oakland public schools. It's a question about a healthy Oakland, and an Oakland that everybody feels comfortable and able and welcome to live in. And there are just too many examples of policies that have been passed that have racially isolated and economically isolated Oakland, so that you have concentrations of poverty and super high need. So schools are part of transforming that, but that's not sufficient, and you won't be able to convince families to go through places where they're very unsafe to go to a school, or to feel connected in ways with other families that are different than they are, unless there's a context for that. So I think it's a broader piece of work. I think the schools have to be better for sure, but it's a bigger question than just, make sure schools are good enough for everybody to go to.
And here's Kaila.
Superintendent Smith, what advice would you give the incoming superintendent?
I really think it's important to keep listening. I think my work, I really hold myself accountable for, I talk about leadership. You have to listen, engage, align, and deliver. Whoever comes in, there's been so much work. There were more than 5,000 people that participated in a planning process for the strategic plan. There are all these task forces. A long arc to change a history where people felt more comfortable attacking the system than supporting it. I would really encourage whoever comes in to continue the alliances that have been built, spend time with young people, and really stay committed to making sure that quality, not ideology of big school, small school, this kind of school, but really focus on quality for every kid has to be the focus. And to really stay open to the hard work. I mean, this is going to take time. Oakland has gotten better. We've eliminated the structural deficit. There's, I think, going to be more money for the first time in many years. So the new superintendent is going to have a set of challenges, which are, how do you stay committed to the priorities that got set, and really still listen and take time to build a full service community school district, and not, I think it's pretty simple for me. Continuous improvement is different than a pendulum. Don't just come in and say, well, we need to try something else. That it's got to be about, there's been progress. How do you build your leadership on what's been good and keep going? That would be kind of advice and a question I would have.
Thank you. And Ray has another question.
What challenges do you see on the horizon?
I think the landscape, the education questions are going to increasingly be about what counts for credit and how much seat time, particularly with some of the changes in the online learning. I think we're going to have to be much better about supporting young people both with technology, but also being clear that you have to distribute resources in different ways, that there are places and young people in Oakland who need more than other kids, and if you want every kid to be successful, you're going to have to pay attention to that and be disciplined and work with other elected leaders in the city. But also I think we can accelerate the learning opportunities in ways we never could before, and target them and make them much more individualized. The question will be, will the system be flexible enough to allow that to happen? And can we use that flexibility for really with a sense around equity and making sure that kids who haven't had access or support get that access and support, and then other students who have been interested in other more advanced opportunities get those too. But that's going to be a real challenge as information gets more democratized and accessible. How do you kind of frame that and shape that and make sure that it's still, you don't just let that then kind of accelerate the achievement gap and the width, but you actually use it to support everybody. I think that's a biggie.
And I have the final question for you. Will you ever return to Oakland and the district?
So right now we are going to support Kathleen's dad and figure out as much as we can to help them be healthy, and I really don't know the answer to that. Don't yet know exactly what I'm going to do, and I would love to be back. I mean, we're currently planning to be back at some point. I don't know what that looks like though. And there's so much good work, extraordinary work in Oakland, and I love Oakland. I believe in Oakland. it's an incredible place, and it's my heart. So at some point, I would hope so.
Thank you, Tony Smith. Thank you for spending time with us here today. On behalf of all of us here and the students of Oakland, we wish you good luck in your life and your family ahead. And thanks to all of you who are watching us here on KDOL. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. Just as we want people to listen to us, we listen to you. See you again soon.